Hi there, I'm Rebecca and a really warm welcome back to my channel, PumpkinBecki. In this week's video we're going to have a look at some of my Japanese maples. Not just bonsai or pre-bonsai, but also some that I've got intended for garden plants. Let's get started. I've gathered quite a few Acers in my collection, potentially more than I'd realised, but I literally can't resist them. So I thought we'd have a look at some of them today. The first one that you can see on my turntable is of course my forest, and is fully leafed out and looking absolutely gorgeous. This is going to need a little bit of thinning. It's going to need a bit of pruning, and I've got potential here to take some cuttings because some of the growth is starting to extend really nicely. The leaves have hardened off, so it's a great time to do that work. These trees are also suffering from a few pests, so we'll have a look at those as well. Practical things you can do to help prevent those pests from taking hold, as well as looking at some of the different varieties that I've got. My forest was imported from Japan, and it's Acer palmatum. Now that's commonly used as the rootstock in commercial propagation when they're grafting cultivars on. It provides a stronger root system than the cultivar might have on its own. Although it's technically one subspecies in this pot, I'm always delighted by the colour variation in the group. This particular plant has orange tips. The main pest at this time of year particularly is aphid. They really like the young shoots on acers. There are a few things you can do to stop aphid. You can make a very dilute soap and water solution that you simply squirt on them. That damages their outer layer and prevents them from breathing, and they eventually die. You will have to repeat the process probably several times, and don't do it on a really sunny day, or take the tree out of direct sunlight if you can. You can also simply squish them between thumb and forefinger. These are the only two methods I use. I really won't use pesticides in my garden because they are dangerous to our natural pollinators, natural predators, and I don't believe they have a place in my garden. Here's an example of honeydew on leaves. You can see the little sticky spots on the leaves. You'll often find ants going up and down the plants, and they are harvesting the honeydew that the insects are producing. It's the 10th of May and we've hardly had any rain for the last 3 months now, so I have been hand watering, but we've also had this month an awful lot of really strong wind, constant wind, so what you've got on some of these leaves is a little tiny bit of wind damage. I am careful about where I place my acers, but sometimes you just can't avoid it, and I've been lucky that really it's only the tips of a couple that have been affected. The main point of this activity is not to get cutting material, it's to actually thin the canopy, make sure there's lots of light getting into the depths of the tree, and encouraging shorter, stockier internode lengths. Not all the pieces I'm going to be taking off will be suitable for cuttings, they won't have enough internodes. But I'll pop them in the water nonetheless. Maples naturally produce 3-point growth, so they have a main central piece of growth that extends, and coming off will be two opposing either branches or leaves, and we want to not have that. Our options somewhere like this, where you have a trifurcation, is to either take the central piece out, which will leave you with a wider flare between these two, which will eventually become branches. Or you can remove one of the leaves, which gives you a more acute angle here between the two remaining. On this occasion, I'm actually going to take this branch right back into here, because the internode length, the distance between the leaves, is getting far too long. I'm actually going to give this little branch to the other side of it preference. I'm going to prepare this one as a cutting by removing the lower leaves, and in fact at least one of the top leaves, and I'm going to come in with my very sharp bonsai scissors immediately underneath where I've just taken the leaves off, and cut, and put it straight into the water. The other big benefit to doing this work, not just increasing the amount of light getting in, is increasing the amount of air getting in, but also it makes it a less happy environment for the insects that are trying to eat your lovely trees to live in. So although this seems really harsh, this poor tree has only just put out all this growth, and I'm coming in and chopping it all off. But there are such good horticultural reasons for doing it. I've got some nice light little leaves coming off this junction here, with more buds popping I can see. This one going straight up is of course becoming quite thick and dominant, so I am going to completely remove it. I'm also going to remove anything that's just directly growing into the centre of, or into the path of, other trees and branches. Here I've got quite a strong piece of growth coming out to the side. It's established. Further out it's doing some nice division. And below it is quite a weak little branch with just 2 divisions on it. I'm actually going to remove the thicker one to allow the thinner one more light and room to develop. That might seem like a really odd thing to do, but again, it has lightened this area. That will encourage this to grow, but it will remain more compact. And the other benefit of canopy reduction is that sometimes it reveals creatures that you may not have seen if your canopy was full and intact. Here I have some scale insect. you might notice I'm doing a little bit of defoliation, and that's where you cut a leaf at the point where it meets the petiole, or if you want to be really technical, the stalky bit. And I'm just doing that in the places where I have no decent buds yet to be able to actually prune to. That has significantly reduced the canopy and is allowing a lot more light in now. Possibly I could go further, but I don't know. I think I've probably achieved what I needed to achieve. I might just remove some of these leaves. Where the extension's getting quite long and I've got nowhere to prune back to, that should stimulate new leaves, new buds. That's the back view. And the front. Having dipped the cuttings into some hormone rooting gel and popped them into some damp vermiculite, I'm now going to pop this whole thing into a bag. And I'm popping a couple of bits of cane in just to help keep the plastic up off the plants, as you don't want the plastic to touch the leaves. And then close the zip lock on it. And I can put that out of direct sunlight but in the greenhouse, and hopefully we'll get some cuttings. I brought some other varieties in, but we can't hang around too long. It's getting so hot in here that they are starting to wilt just a little bit, and I don't want that. This is Benny Mako. Beautiful, beautiful colour. This was a reduced one from B&Q. And I can see that I will have some nice cutting material. I can't do it now because it's started to droop I should say, and that means that there won't be enough in it to actually be a viable cutting. So I'm just going to let that one carry on doing its thing. It's a non-grafted one. B&Q have lots of non-grafted ones which are brilliant for bonsai. I've now got two Benny Mako. One is much greener than this one, and possibly it's just where it's positioned on the benches. It's getting more light, just making it go a little bit greener, as this one stayed more red. This little one is called Butterfly, and it has a really pretty variegation to it, and in fact not only is it white and green, but it also has pink flashing on it too. Really sweet. Again, an absolute bargain from B&Q, not grafted, so perfect for me for bonsai. If you wanted to grow it as a garden tree, you're probably better to get a lot of these things as grafted material. This is Skeeter's Broom. Goes a beautiful colour in autumn. Again, starting to wilt already, so I really mustn't hang around. This is Orange Dream. I love the vivid colours that you get on the new growth. Really pretty tree. Again, B&Q, not sponsored. This is Shishigashira, and a certain viewer will probably recognise it. This is a very kind gift from the lovely Jason Hanrahan. It's an air layer he took from one of his big trees that he always had that in mind for, and he gave several of them away, and I am a very, very lucky recipient. It's settled in really well. Thank you, Jason. This year I also treated myself to a grafted Deshojo. This is the original version Deshojo. There are improved versions. I think I aim to grow this as a garden tree, or at least in a large pot in the garden rather than planted in a bonsai pot, but hopefully I might be able to air layer later once it's developed more. I mean, the graft is pretty nasty, so you wouldn't win any prizes as a bonsai as it stands with that trunk. That was from Acer's online. I think it was $39.95 or something. Quite expensive compared to the sorts of things I can buy for that money at somewhere like B&Q, for example. But this is nursery grown by a specialist. It's also not a variety you can easily get hold of at a normal nursery. So, you know, I also bought it sight unseen, and so what I got was what I got. But again, I knew I wanted to grow it on and then take cuttings or air layers from it, rather than use it as a bonsai. I lift it out. Yes, there are a lot of roots, but it is by no means full. So I'm going to leave it in this pot probably for another couple of years. I mean, it's very happy, it's using water really well, it's not getting waterlogged. Yeah, there's no need to pot this up. It won't do me any favours, and let me show you what I mean by that. This is Acer Atropurpureum, a very strong Acer. Now, I watch a really lovely gentleman by the name of Carl, and he has a channel called simply Japanese Maples with the S on the end, and he's here in the UK, and he grows so many beautiful Japanese maples in his garden. He talks about the benefits of growing within a pot while you are learning the attributes of your tree, so that you can move it if it doesn't actually like full sun and actually needs a bit more shade. If you need to protect it more from wind, he often says that Shishigashira, it doesn't really care about wind. It's very tight leaves that are quite packed, and they don't really tend to move around very much for him, but the ones with the bigger palmate leaves will tend to move around a lot in the wind, which dries them out, which leads to foliage dying and all these lovely things. He tells us all about this. He shows us when he goes on walks around arboretums and shows us real trees in the ground, full size, what they look like, their natural form. Now, he's always telling us not to overpot our trees, because maples really just don't like it. They don't like wet soil, and so if you put them in a container where the roots are not able to take up all the water that you're giving it, the root system will begin to rot, so it will be able to take up even less water and the tree will decline. He has been able to save one of his trees from this, and I'm hoping that by following his advice I can save Atropurpureum. In one of the videos he says, and I'm linking it here for you because it is really important, he says something along the lines of, if you overpot a maple, it might be alright this year, it might grow, it might seem healthy enough, it might come through the winter, but the following year is when you will see the problems. And I thought, come on, it's a Atropurpureum. I'm going to grow it in a lovely Japanese inspired black ceramic pot. Oh, that's something else he doesn't recommend for for maples, black. And I'm going to put it with a heuchera, and I'm just going to grow it in the garden, and it's going to look lovely. And it did. First year, really lovely. Came through winter, had beautiful buds, and I decided I was going to do the thing that I do with all my bonsai maples. I was going to take those casings off the leaves so that they could get furling out sooner rather than later. And this is what happened. All the leaves said no, and they died. And I thought, oh no. So I thought I'd do what he did. He took his, I think it's Trompenberg, he took it out of the slightly larger pot than this tree needed and potted it down into a smaller pot. So this has come out of a huge garden pot into something that the root system just fits in. And I'm using a water meter and keeping a really close eye on how it is taking up water. And I have noticed, it's been in here for about 2 weeks now, I've got a new leaf. So yeah, I'm not going to do anything horrible to this little tree. I'm just going to keep it somewhere shady and keep a very close eye on it. I bought myself a water meter, you know, one of those metal spikes that you stick in the ground and it tells you whether it's too dry or too wet. Oh, somewhere in the middle. And that is going to really help me keep an eye on this. Also using it on the shoujo because that's in a normal compost and it's harder to tell whether it's too wet or too dry, so I'm going to use that on those. And that's the big lesson. When somebody who knows what they're doing says don't do it, and you think, oh come on, yeah, give it a try, but likelihood is that that expert knows exactly what they're talking about, and you've just made a boo-boo. So this one is going to go back in the shade and hopefully continue to recover. Right, that's it for this week's video. Thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like, share and subscribe to me here on YouTube. And until next time, bye.